There is a reason Alex Hormozi is writing his next book on money models. And in this video, I'm going to explain why you need to have a money model or a money map in your business if you want to grow fast and if you want to have stability and consistent revenue and clients who stay for 12, 18, maybe even 24 months. So before we jump into this video, I want to show you what most coaches do and why they do it wrong. So if you're in the coaching space, you probably already have a core offer, a main thing that you deliver, which is very likely some kind of 12-week program that seems to be quite standard across the industry. Now, maybe you're in fitness or maybe you're in a different type of coaching, but most coaches and consultants are offering some kind of a 12-week or maybe a 16-week package, and they have a specific period of time with a specific amount of money. And usually what they're doing is they are trying to sell that package multiple times. So they have this kind of flow of core offers where they have this front end product or this front end service. They sell people on 12 weeks of one-to-one online coaching. They charge maybe €250 a month, which is €750. And then at the end of this 12 weeks, they just try and sell the same thing again. So they maybe have some bit of a client journey where they say, hey, well, look, you also need to do this for your health and fitness. You need to go to the next step. Do you want to stay on and do another 12 weeks? They may even discount this. Or if they have decent sales skills, they may be able to actually sell the client on the next leg of the journey. Now, if they've done very well and they've managed to sell two 12-week blocks, the potential lifetime value of this client before they maybe transition down to a long-term client rate is about €1,500. Now, a lot of the coaches and the creators I speak to are actually struggling to get people to stay after the initial 12 weeks, which means every 12 weeks, they need to find a new client to replace the client who's jumped off board. Now, the coaches that I'm working with are putting into place a model and a map, a money model and a money map in their business that allows them to keep clients for 12, 18, 24 months and more. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. Now, after these 12 weeks, let's just assume you've managed to actually sell one client on these two separate blocks of 12 weeks, €1,500. Maybe at the end of this, you've got a long-term client rate where you now charge €200 per month. And now, this client maybe stays for another 90 days. They've paid you €600. So we're talking maybe something in and around €2,100 total lifetime value of this client. That's what they're worth. And once they kind of hit that point, they're gone out of the business and you need to find a new client to come in, which means that if you want to do 100K in a calendar year, you must sell 50 clients approximately to do 6 figures. So that's not bad. That's fine. I actually got to 6 figures with this exact model before I knew what I know now. But we can do better. We can think like entrepreneurs and we can think like business owners, and we can actually create an ecosystem of offers and products or offers and services. And we can create a natural flow with an incentive that aligns with the client journey. So let's look at what entrepreneurial coaches do. Now, you may notice back on this diagram, we have an empty space at the beginning. And this is because we can actually have a front-end product which is built for customer acquisition. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this on this particular video. There will be more videos on my channel that go deeper into this. But for example, if you want to get into paid advertising and you want to scale through paid advertising, having a front-end product or service that you can sell that covers the advertising budget is a really useful thing to have. Also, if you're doing something paid, it helps you identify the high intent people in your audience and the people who are not time wasters, but are actually willing to pay to solve the problem. It also gives you leverage. So as soon as somebody makes a payment, you have now got leverage. Now, I want you to think about what's actually happening here. So we've got this core offer flow. Imagine that instead of selling a 12-week coaching program, the very first thing that you sell somebody is a €50 one-time nutritional audit or paid challenge. So they've paid you €50. Now, with this €50, they may actually take a sales call with you or a call with you, which is effectively like somebody paying for a sales call. only they're coming in and getting a ton of value because it's not actually a sales call. They're paying for the time, so you're coaching them. And then at the end, usually they'll ask you what your coaching service looks like. Now, depending on your niche and depending on how your audience see the world and kind of see your service and what you are providing for them in terms of a result, this will differ. But this is just an example. So let's assume we're in the fitness coaching space. Now, if you're in the business coaching space and you're helping people to make more money, this looks a little bit different, because if you're working with me, for example, as you work with me, you make more money and your budget goes up over time. So what I will do in my own personal offer flow in my business is I will get people started for a small amount of money and on a low tier in terms of support. And as they progress through the program, they make more money because I'm coaching them to make money online. Their budget gets bigger. And so as they go through the program, they will get bigger and bigger offers and they will get closer and closer to me, and we will work in a closer capacity. Now, with something like fitness coaching, what actually happens is usually the person is not making money directly, maybe indirectly because they have more energy or something and they're getting promotions, but directly they're usually not making money from your service. And so in order for you to structure this properly, it makes the most sense to actually have the higher tier stuff at the beginning and the lower tier stuff on the back end as they've been in the program for a while. And we'll explain what that looks like. So if somebody comes in, they pay €50, they do some sort of small offer, a challenge, they do a one-to-one call consultation with you. The next thing that you pitch them on, we can pitch them on two things. We can pitch them on the emotional part of the client journey, but we can also pitch them on the logical part of why they should make this decision now and why it's a good idea. So if someone has paid €50 or anything, that is actually a piece of leverage. We can use that payment as leverage going forward. So this is what it looks like. Instead of pitching them on 12 weeks, if I want to just optimize for getting somebody started and getting them a good result and getting them to actually enjoy the process, I might actually pitch them on 6 weeks of one-to-one online coaching. And let's say I charge €400 for 6 weeks, which works out at about $267 per 4 weeks. Now I can actually incentivize them by saying, well, look, you've already paid €50. I'm willing on this occasion as a one-time offer to discount that €50 against the value of the program. And now they've actually got an incentive to move. They've got a cashback incentive to move now. And there's a reason to move now, because if they don't move now, they're going to lose the €50 that they have prepaid. So we're actually giving them an incentive. Now we also have to align that incentive with what we're going to deliver. We need to give them a good offer and a good outcome in the 6 weeks. So this might be to lose 5 kg of fat in 6 weeks, and there's a €50 cashback if you get started today. So there's an incentive for people to start. Now let's say they go, okay, they do this. They decide this is a good fit. They go through this process. Now they spent 6 weeks with us. Now, at the beginning, if they've just done a paid challenge or a one-time nutritional audit, it doesn't really make sense to pitch them on 6 months of coaching, right? But if we pitch them on something small, like 6 weeks, we haven't actually used up all of their budget early on. And we've now got another piece of leverage. We've now got €400 invested, and we can use that investment as a piece of leverage where we offer them the incentive of cashback again. Only this week, we're offering them a bigger chunk of time. So they've gone through 6 weeks, they've lost 5 kg, and we're also framing this as, look, you've gone through the first 6 weeks, you've lost the first 5 kg, you're on the first step of this big journey. Now, over the next 6 months, I can see you losing another 15 kg, getting abs for the first time, doing a photo shoot, completely transforming your entire life. And that is the vision and the trajectory that I see for you. That being said, we need a bit of time. I think you're a perfect client. And so what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to give you a opportunity to actually redeem what you've paid already against this next block of coaching, right? So instead of just saying, oh, we're finished the 6 weeks, do you want to do another 6 weeks? Now we've actually got an incentive, which also lines up with a client journey. So we also want to have a clear reasoning for why we would do 24 weeks of one-to-one online coaching. Like, what is the outcome and the thing that we're achieving with this? But this would be like the foundations part, or kind of like an accelerator program part. And then this would be the deeper transformation. So again, we're getting people to come in committing to something small, using the money they pay as a discount and an incentive for them to get involved to a slightly higher level, to then actually commit to a higher level again. And we can incentivize, say, 50% of the cash back. Now, depending on what this offer is, if this offer is a bigger offer, and in some models, this could be mastermind coaching, and this could be one-to-one, and the difference in these two tiers could be significant, where you could actually do 100% cash back. I actually do 100% cash back from this tier to this tier because it just makes sense. The numbers make sense. If I was to do 100% cash back here, the numbers wouldn't make sense because these are too close in terms of the level of support and service people are getting. So let's just assume that somebody has paid for one-to-one coaching and they want to continue towards this big goal. Now we can say, look, I am willing to incentivize you to move forward, and I'm willing to offer you a 50% cash back on the money you've invested so far. Now they've invested 50 here, and say they got the 50 back, that would be 350. So it's a total of 400. Now we would give them a 50% cash back, which would make it 1,400 instead of 1,600 for 24 weeks of one-to-one online coaching. And now they've got an incentive. We can also offer a further incentive, which is 100% cash back in order to go up front. And this means, we actually are getting paid up front. And yes, this means you don't have monthly recurring revenue. But if you're an online coach, there's a good chance you've had to chase payments. There's a good chance you made an agreement with somebody at some point, and then 3 weeks in, they came back and said they couldn't do it. And although you had the agreement, you weren't going to go and, chase them down and do lawsuits and all of this kind of stuff. So you probably just had to face the fact that you lost the client, they didn't adhere to the agreement, and there's nothing that you can do. So monthly recurring revenue is like a fake safety shield. Like it doesn't really exist. It looks good on your Stripe account, but it doesn't actually mean that you will get paid that money. So getting paid up front can be great for the client. It also locks them in. It means you don't have to worry about them jumping off board. And now they've got 24 weeks of no payments. So if they can make this payment up front, in 24 weeks, the likelihood of them making a payment again is much higher than if they're paying all the time and they feel like they're being bled, right? So here, and we'll look at like what this actually looks like, because you might be like, oh, but Owen, if you keep discounting, how much are we actually going to make? Now, bear in mind, the guys back here are probably making 2,100 over, let's say, 12, 24, let's say about 36 weeks. And it's working out somewhere around the 225, 230 euros per month for about 9 months maximum. Okay, a lot of people will get, yes, they'll get 250 a month, but they'll only keep people for 3 months, or maybe they'll keep people for 6 months, but they won't be able to keep clients for a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, right? And although it might look like monthly, this is better. If we actually break down the time and the effort it takes to get new clients, that's not the case. So let's just go back over here. So we've now incentivized people, and let's assume that somebody here has decided to go upfront. They've completed 24 weeks of one-to-one online coaching. So now we've had a client who's basically been paying us 267 per 4 weeks here for the first 6 weeks. Then here they've decided to pay us again 1,200 upfront for 24 weeks, which is basically 1,200 divided by 6 is 200 a month. So we've now got them 6 months here, a month and a half here. We're still collecting, 200 a month here and 267 approximately here. And now we can offer them a further incentive to actually work with us again, where we can offer them a 100% cashback arrangement, where they can basically use the 1,200, 100% cashback on the previous payment, not on all-time payments, but 100% cashback on this payment, where the previous payment you made, we will hold against the next stage of the journey. And now somebody can actually pay for 12 or 52 weeks up front, and they're actually, paying 1,800 up front. And again, we can actually incentivize them by using this as the first part of the investment. If they say no, they're actually losing out on the fact, well, look, you've already paid 1,200. We're going to reduce this by 1,200. Now, again, we'll look at the numbers. You would be surprised how much this actually works out at. And then finally, after this is a year, this is a year and a half, this is a year and almost 8 months. So if you kept somebody for a year and 8 months, then you can just offer them a long-term client rate of, say, 150 per month, and the incentive would be, 50% reduced rate for life. for example. Now, it might actually be 50%, but let's just say reduced rate for life, right? So you can offer them 150 euros per month. Now, this should make sense, but you might be thinking, well, there's a few issues here, right? It's like, okay, I understand this one, but what about if people say no? What about if I'm just discounting my time way too much? Like, does this actually work out to be more money? Because it looks like we're doing a lot of discounting. Well, let's go and have a look. So here's the actual numbers, right? So let's say they pay the 50 euro, they then discount the 50 euro against the 400, so they pay 50 and then 350. It still works out to be 400 euro. So in the first purchase here, they're making 400 euro, right? In the second purchase, if they agree that this is a good incentive and a good deal, they're now going to pay 1,400 euro in split payments or 1,200 euro upfront. If they then go to the third stage of this offer flow framework, they're going to pay 2,270 or 2,000 euro. Okay. And I think I actually had to redo the numbers on these. I made a mistake. When I was doing these, I calculated this for 12 months, and it should actually not be 12 months because it's a weekly payment. It should be 52 weeks. So I need to actually just update this for the last piece here. But what's actually happening here is 12 months, and this is an interesting thing, right? 12 months is not the same as 12 sets of 4 weeks, because in a calendar year, there is 52 weeks. And if you divide 4 into 52, you actually get 13 months. So if you're charging people on a weekly basis versus a monthly basis, you get 13 months instead of 12 out of each year. So that's something you maybe didn't realize. But that is the case. So when we're actually looking at this over weeks, this person is paying, say, 2,000 upfront, or they're paying 2,270 if they want to do the split payment. So let's actually go now and look at this. So they've paid 400 in the first 6 weeks. For the second part, which is the 6-month part, they've paid 1,400 or 1,200. And if they then commit to the year of coaching, they're paying 2,270 or 2,000. Now, before we look at the long-term client rate, and before we look at any other sources of income, because there's other ways we can make money here as well, right? This is the baseline. Let's actually look at what this works out as. So assuming the person goes along the whole way through the process and does split pays, where they pay a little bit more, but they're obviously paying over time, they're paying 4,070 for 82 weeks of coaching. Now, bear in mind, they're getting an amazing deal the whole way through, and it's much easier for them to say yes the whole way through because the deal is so much better. Now, don't forget, back at the start, what most coaches are doing, if they do really well, they're getting 2,100 euros from each client. If they're really killing it, most coaches are probably only getting 750 per client. Some of you watching this might be charging like 500 euro for 12 weeks of coaching, and you might never retain somebody beyond the first 12 weeks, right? So if you're charging 500 euro for 12 weeks and no one stays on, this is an 8x. We could 8x your business just by putting something like this into place. Of course, we have to test it and see what works for your business. This is just an example, and there'll be lots of different business models, offers, ways of delivering where these numbers won't make sense and they would have to be adjusted. But let's just assume in the example of a fitness coach, this is what we actually get at the end. So if we do split pays, they're paying 4,070 euro for 82 weeks. If they're doing, and this is about a year and a half, just over a year and a half, that works out at nearly 50 euros a week for a year and a half, or for, I think it's 18, yeah, it's 18.9 months, right? So it's almost 19 months. So someone paying you 198 euro per 4 weeks. Now, don't forget, per 4 weeks, if we're paying per week and we're selling blocks of weeks, we're actually making more per month, right? Because there's 13 blocks of 4 weeks in a calendar year, but there's only 12 months. So if we're actually doing the weekly pricing and we understand how to structure these prices in the right way, what's actually happening here is, although we are charging 198 per 4 weeks, we're actually taking in 214.50 per month for 18.9 months, right? Which is 13 blocks of 4 weeks in 12 months. So although we're discounting heavily here the whole way through, if we actually look at it, we're still earning 214.50 every month for over a year and a half, right? Compared to, yes, our coach here might be earning 250 and 250 in the first 6 months, and then potentially down to 200, and they might be making 230 over 9 months, let's say 230 a month over 9 months, but they're still not breaking, they're probably just about breaking 2K, or maybe not even breaking 2K. And if your lifetime value is anywhere below 2K, if clients are only staying for 12 weeks or 24 weeks, this is going to just absolutely transform your business. Now, if people optimize for the huge discounts and they go up front the whole way through, which is great because you get paid up front, you lock the client in, you don't need to worry about people leaving. Yes, it's discounted, but at the same time, you're getting people locked in and committed, and you've got great clients in the business. This is what the numbers look like. It's about 470 euro, or exactly 470 euro less in your pocket, but it still works out to be 174 per 4 weeks, which is 188.50 per month for 18.9 months. So just imagine you had 10 clients who stayed for 19 months and paid you 188 a month. 10 clients. That would be nearly 2 grand a month for a year and a half. That would be all of your living, your rent, all of your basics covered, just because you've got long-term clients in the business. Now you might think, oh no, but usually I charge more. I charge 200 or 250 or 225. But you don't have to go out and search for new clients. You don't have to do sales. You don't have to do marketing. You don't have to do all of this work when you already have clients in the business. So this is actually going to save you a lot of time as well, which you can then put towards either getting other clients or serving your current clients better and making the value of your program better. Now, I said this was the potential lifetime value before the long-term client rate. And it is, but there's also other things we can factor in here. Now, there's two things that I want to talk about. One is just a fear or an objection that you might have right now. And this might be, this sounds great, Owen, but what if people say no? Again, what do entrepreneurs do? If you ever try to leave an app, try this on one of your apps. If you've got a subscription app and you try and leave the app, they'll often offer you 50% for the next 3 months to stay on. And they'll offer you what's called a downsell. And a downsell is just almost like if you're asking somebody out on a dinner date and they say no, you say, well, what about coffee instead, right? It's like an easier to say yes to smaller thing that is still moving your client in the right direction and is still optimizing for keeping your client in the business. So let's go here. 6 weeks of one-to-one online coaching. They say no. They say, look, 400 euro, it's just out of my budget. It's just a little bit too much. We also want to have a downsell in our pocket where we can keep the client in the business and we can continue to move them along this funnel, but it doesn't cost us our time and our energy. So again, depends on, you should have multiple tiers in your business. By the way, if you're looking at this and you're like, this sounds great, but I just don't know where to start with this. I don't have multiple tiers in my business. I don't even know what my delivery looks like. Go to Instagram and just send me a message and tell me you watch this video and tell me you're feeling stuck. And I'll literally give you the exact next steps that you need to take in the right order and what you need to figure out, what you need to do to actually go and implement this stuff. The Instagram is the same as the YouTube, Owen Dobbin Cato. So yeah, like go message me now and then come back and watch this video. But downsells, right? So if you have a group tier or community tier coaching offer, you could offer people down to that. And maybe it's 75% of the investment of your one-to-one, because for you, you're showing up to a group call or you're managing people in a WhatsApp group and you don't have the same level of delivery, so you can charge less money, but people are still getting a good result and you're not tied to delivering your time and your energy. So again, same thing. We can offer them slightly less in terms of an investment. We can still credit the 50 euros, but we're keeping them in motion. We're keeping them in the business. And at the end of this 6 weeks, we can then transition them back up to this initial offer. Now, say they get through the 6 weeks, they love it, and they're going really well. We can make this offer. Again, we do the same incentive. Obviously, the numbers here will be a little bit different because if they spend 300 euro, then we'll be discounting 300 instead of 400, which will work out to basically be the same thing because if they've paid a little bit less and we discount a little bit less, they still pay the same amount overall by the time they get to the end of the client journey. If they say no to this, we can then downsell them from one-to-one coaching down to group coaching, right? Which might be basically 1,200 instead of 1,600. And again, we can use the same incentive. Now, if they say no to this, we can actually continue to downsell and we can say, well, look, instead of 24 weeks, because that's too big a commitment, why don't we look at 12 weeks of group tier coaching and we'll do 50% of everything. So we'll do 50% of the investment, but we'll also do 50% of the cash back. So you're not losing any money. You're just basically selling them in the first 12 weeks instead of the full 24, but it's still extending your client lifetime value. There's still an incentive for them to move now because they are getting some cash back and they're still staying in the business and moving forward, right? So usually this would be 600. If we give them 25% cash back and they've already paid, say, 400, they're going to get 100 euros back. If they've already paid 300, they're going to get 75 euros back. If they go up front, we can give them the 50% incentive if you want. And basically what this means is we're just keeping them in the business for another 12 weeks. And in 12 weeks, we then have the opportunity to sell them back into the main thing or to sell them the second part, right? So like if we sell them the 12 weeks, then we can go back up and say, hey, well, you've already done 12, which is half of the 24. So why don't we just continue and do the next 12 and actually complete the 24-week block, right? So you can move them back up the funnel, back up to this top tier, and eventually you can move them along to the 52 weeks. And again, you can downsell the 52 weeks here as well. And then at some point at the end of the journey, you'll have some long-term client rate where, you know, someone has been with you for 52 weeks, they've been with you for a further 24, a further 6, and you're like, okay, I'm just happy to keep them in the business right now. Okay. Now you might be thinking 140 per month, that's very low. And obviously you can crunch your numbers and see what your long-term client rate is. But if someone's already paid you 4,000 euro and they're a great client and they've been in the business for ages, the amount of work you have to do to manage somebody who's been with you for 18 months is very, very little. They're basically doing most of the work themselves and you're just there to kind of check in on them and give them a little bit of support when they need it. But they're basically managing themselves for the most part. They're showing up, getting the value, and then they're going and they're implementing. They also can be like cheerleaders for your community, so they can be very valuable inside your client community for actually, you know, bringing other people in and showing other people that there's this long-term journey and showing other people that it's worth staying around for a year and a half, and they can actually bring a ton of value and social proof to your community, so they're worth keeping around. Even if they weren't paying anything, to be honest, they'd probably still be valuable to some extent, but obviously we want to protect your time. And then finally, you don't have to worry about, like, there's no setup costs for new clients. You don't have to take a sales call. You don't have to, you know, talk to them in the DMs for 5 weeks over and back to try and get them to join your program. You don't have to answer the 10 questions that every new client has that, you know, they don't understand how to use things. They can't get into the app. You don't have to basically like spend money on advertising or anything to go and get them. They're already there. So although this might look like a lower rate, once you get them to long-term client rate, they've already provided so much value to the business. They've probably brought you referrals. They've probably brought you testimonials. That this is still a brilliant rate, right? And again, you don't need more clients. You can make a lot more money just by actually understanding what is the next steps. Now, all of this also wants to be tied to a client transformation. Like, what are they actually achieving in the first 6 weeks, next 24 weeks, next 52 weeks? Like, what's that big client journey that they're going through, and what's the big transformation you're delivering? Because that obviously has to make sense. If you're like, oh, I'll just coach you for 52 weeks, nobody cares about that. They want a transformation. So you need to be sure on, like, where are you bringing your clients to as well with this coaching. So that's what happens if people say no. And there's one final part to this, which is what happens if people say yes. So we've talked about core offer, we've talked about downsells, and now we're going to look at the other piece of this, which is upsells. So I explained before that if we get somebody to go through this entire core offer flow, and we won't look at the maths for downsells because it makes it confusing, but you can work out all this maths yourself. if you take people through the core offer flow, and the downsells, by the way, normally are, we're not completely downselling, we're just halving the commitment most of the time. So if we can kind of keep them, downsell and then bring them back here, we'll get them through the full process anyway. And the lifetime value there was about €4,070, which we looked at before, prior to, so €4,070 if they split payments, €3,600 if they went up front. But we also have upsells. Okay, so what if people say yes? So what about if someone comes onto this call and says, you know what, 100%, I'm in 6 weeks of one-to-one online coaching, let's do it. And they're absolutely fired up and pumped. There is no reason that you can't say, well, hey, seeing as you're so all in on this, why don't we add a bit of extra support? And why don't we do 60 minutes in the gym in person if they're in your locality? And we'll add on another €100, but we'll basically spend a few hours together and we'll go to the gym and we'll have coffee. And some people will say, yes, 100%, let's do this. Or maybe you have a live event that you're running. I have a mastermind right now, and people are buying tickets to my mastermind. My current clients are buying tickets. I have ex-clients buying tickets. I have new people buying tickets. So maybe you've got some live event. Maybe it's like an exercise execution workshop in a local gym. Or maybe it's a virtual event, or maybe a series of virtual events online. But maybe there's something that you can actually add on top of this, right? Where you've added an extra €100 upsell. Now, this could just be in the first one. Now, obviously, if they've just paid 400, we're probably not going to offer them an extra 500 right here, but we might offer an extra 100, right? An extra 20% of a jump up of an upsell. So let's say they bought this and this, and they're loving the process, and money isn't a major issue for this client. And for some clients, that would be the case. Not every client is going to upsell. Some clients will downsell, but 1 out of 5 will probably go up front, and those ones will probably upsell as well. So if you actually have this journey in this map and you make the offers, it's okay if someone says no, but if you make the offers, people will actually go through this and buy all the offers, because some people will want that extra level of support. Now, imagine 24 weeks. They go through this, they pay you 1,200 up front, or they pay you 1,400 on split pay. Now you can add in person one-to-one support. And you could say, well, over the 24 weeks, why don't we add one monthly meeting in person? We'll go to the gym, we'll have a nutrition audit over coffee, and we'll do a deep dive on your progress once a month. And for this service, for this 3 or 4 hours, once each month, it'll be €100 per month. So maybe they pay this up front, and then maybe you've got €100 monthly recurring payment, or maybe they even go up front on this as well. Now, you could offer something like, hey, look, we're doing this 24 weeks. Why don't we do a photo shoot package or a competition prep package where it's a €500 one-time payment on top of this, but I'm going to meet up with you and I'm going to help you to learn how to pose. I'm going to help you to set yourself up for the photo shoot. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And you're just essentially stacking value here as well, right? That's just another potential upsell. Now, depending on what your demographic is, this can be different. For me, I can upsell people to higher levels of support with me so they can have more of my one-to-one time. They can meet me in person if they're nearby. I actually have an offer where I fly people out to Sofia, where I live, and they spend a few days in my spare room and we work together, building their business over 3 or 4 days, and we have a bit of a working holiday. I also have mastermind tickets I can sell. So I have a bunch of things that I can offer people if they want to go deeper with me. And for your business, you can sit down and just think about, like, well, what are the added services and the other things that I can add? And again, if you want help with this, I literally do this all the time. I have a list of stuff that you can upsell. So just tell me you watch the video and ask for the upsell list, and I'll send you a list of all of the different things that I upsell and my clients upsell as well. And then, again, you could upsell from here to this, or there's no specific way that you have to do it. Obviously, I would usually only upsell maybe 20% or so. So if they paid 400, you can upsell to 100. If they paid 1,400, you could upsell, like 4 or 5, maybe even 600 as well. 20-30%, I think is kind of the max. I wouldn't like upsell somebody to double most of the time, depending on the client, depending on the offer. You could also offer exercise seminar tickets for like one-time payment, and you could get 10 clients and do a one-time payment of €100 for 10 clients, and that's €1,000 for you to organize a one-day thing, right? Like there's so many ways that you can make money in your business. It's not just getting more clients, it's not just charging more money, but it's actually having more offers and increasing the lifetime value of current clients and solving more problems in a better way for them. So now imagine you've run people through this entire core offer flow. You've also bolted on a few upsells. And then at the very end, you get them on €140 per month as a client rate, right? Like this is just completely different. And if we actually go and look what the numbers look like, this is potential lifetime value before long-term client rate and upsells. So let's say it's €4,000, give or take, for split pays and €3,600 for upfronts. Now, this client is with us over 18.9 months. So imagine that we have an upsell to make 3 or 4 times over that period of time. And some of the upsells are €100, some of them are €500, some of them are €600, some of them are 400. It totally depends. But if you have a client who works very closely with you for 19 months and you run in-person events, you do deeper dives, you offer additional one-to-one support, there is a high likelihood that that person is going to spend at least an extra €500 in upsells over the 18.9 months. And it may be more, right? But if you actually have this pathway and you have these different options for people, there's a very high likelihood that they're going to spend €500 plus over 18.9 months. And when we actually get the end of the pathway, even if they only spend €500, if we can get somebody to go the whole way through the pathway, what we're actually looking at is for split pay, 4,570, for upfront, 4,100. And again, when we crunch these numbers, this is 241 per month. This is 216.50 per month, but they're staying with us for almost 19 months, right? So we've actually extended the lifetime value from our coach who is not doing things very well and is just charging 12 weeks for 750. Like they just don't have anywhere to go. They don't have a next step. They don't have an incentive, because every step we have an incentive where we can offer discounted rate because of their previous investment, and we've got a kind of rolling incentive the whole way through, where people have already invested in the next step and they don't want to lose out on that investment. So like this coach, yes, he's getting 250 a month for 3 months. Maybe he's getting 250 a month for 6 months, but usually people are struggling to keep clients beyond this and even up to this. Whereas if you have the proper model, you can actually get to the end of 18 months, almost 19 months, and you can have people paying you basically the same thing if you have this structured properly. So again, imagine what it would be like. Imagine now if you had 100 clients who you could actually get to stay the whole way through. And not every client is going to stay the whole way through. Of course, there'll be people who drop off, but you'll massively increase your lifetime value, and you'll massively increase the number of people who stay with you for 18 months. And by the way, then you put them on a long-term client rate. So this only gets us to long-term client rate. And if somebody then comes along and stays on a long-term client rate, and you might say, well, hey, I don't want to spend so much time one-to-one with someone who's €140 per month. Well, maybe you just knock them down to €120 per month. You put them in a group coaching tier, and now they're going to stay probably for another year or two because they've been with you so long, they trust you so much. I literally have fitness clients. I don't even do fitness coaching anymore, right? I left fitness coaching over a year ago. I have fitness clients who have been with me for 4 or 5 years, and even when I left fitness coaching, still want to work with me. And so what I did was I just reduced the rate massively. I still gave them some support, but I reduced the rate, and I was like, hey, here's a way reduced rate, but I'm also going to do way less work with you because I just want to put my focus on the business building. And I've had clients for 5 years, right? And those people have paid me tens of thousands of euros over those 5 years, because they've had a really good experience and I've made things logical for them as well. So that's it. There's a reason Hormozi is writing a book on this shit. If you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully that was helpful.